This means I accidentally used the front camera for the back one. Let's see if I can. Oh, there we go. All right, it's working now. You say marine lawyer down the coast? Okay.
Is Ralph getting on in murder?
Yes. Yeah, apparently there's some issues getting out, so they asked us to wait a few minutes.
Sure.
So. Oh. This is the part where I should have like some new jokes or something like that to tell to warm up the crowd. I don't think.
You can have some jokes.
Clean.
This way, I think
I'm not good at jokes. I know one joke. Most people don't like it. Do you know the talking muffin joke?
no.
Most people don't like the talking.
Okay,
That's
well-
I think.
The talking muffin joke. There are two muffins in an oven, and the one muffin turns to the other muffin and goes, "Oh, man, it's really getting hot in here." And the other muffin goes, "Ah, the talking muffin."
Yeah.
Pretty good joke.
I can see why some people might not like that joke.
Can you beat it?
Are you laying that down?
I'm sure I could. Though I give it credit for its brevity.
Yeah.
That was pretty short one.
No, it's subtle brilliance. See, because the muffin is also a talking muffin, but he didn't think about it longer. Yeah.
Now that you've explained
It's a
it to
thought
me.
piece. You gotta let it sink in. Are there any standard Australian jokes?
Emu and a kangaroo walking to a bar. I figure there's got to be one that starts that way.
Yeah,
too.
pretty
A
sure
koala and a wallaby and a wombat.
Okay, you're just throwing in every
Yeah.
icon.
Pretty much.
No?
Wow. Yeah, it's not an Australian joke, but you've probably heard this one before about there's a car accident and Patricia and Brian, her husband, both pass away.
Oh, dear. Yeah,
And
that's
it
great
really
joke.
starts off really funny, I know. And their Patricia, wakes up and goes to the pearly gates and sees St. Peter there, and he says, "Well, Patricia, welcome to the pearly gates. Heaven is all yours, but you've just got to do this one thing." "Oh, what's that?" "Well, you've got to spell a word correctly." "Really?" He's like, "Yeah. Heaven isn't as hard as everybody makes it out to be. You just got to spell one word correctly." And she's like, "Well, what's that word?" "Love." "No problem. Love. St. Peter says, "Sure, here you go. Here's keys to your place. Have a great eternity. It'll be amazing. Oh, but you know what? Before you go in, can you just hang out here for a minute? Because I got to go use the loo. If somebody comes up, you see the deal. Just see if they can spell the word right. And, let them on in." She's like, "Yeah, no problem." Well, here comes Brian, husband of 50-some years, starts ambling up. She looks at him. She says, "Well, you've done it this time. Look what you've done. You've got us here." Yeah. She says, "Well, I just talked to St. Peter. Apparently, it's not so difficult to get into heaven after all. All you got to do is spell one word correctly." He's like, "Really? That's it?" "Yeah, well, what word?" She says, "Czechoslovakia."
That's better than the muffin joke.
Ah.
Oh. So does he spell it right?
Brian's got no chance.
You left us hanging. Yeah.
I got nothing against Brian, but he's a car mechanic. He's not a word guy. Now, Margaret, I bet you could pass that test.
Yeah, right.
You might could get through that.
Yep. This is misspelling bee.
Ellen, you can tell your grandfather that I told a joke about him at church.
One of the best.
Yeah, you came up in church today, Grandpa. Apparently, you're going to hell. God says.
You're right.
I should know this at this point, but where is Gary?
Pittsburgh.
He's in Pittsburgh, okay. You watch his like weekly sermons, or?
Hey, this is being recorded. You know. Yes, of course she does.
Well, he's not preaching anymore, but
Oh.
even before that, I tried to get him to put it on and watch it. There's another one gone by, and I haven't watched it. So,
Well.
Monday,
She's so filled up spiritually from her church services here. It's just
As soon as you retire, then you know what you're going to do. You can sit down and watch all this sermons.
You got anything from the station or from
answer maybe.
their home?
Station. Well, 10:05 train is what he said. So
What time you got?
10:08.
Patients, online viewers. Could sing some, campfire songs.
Yeah, could do that. I should get an order of service so we can actually
There you go.
start the service.
My,
Jim looks at. Keep singing, Jim.
Yeah.
If you want, I can do the little preamble before they get here too.
Yeah, if you like, go for it.
Well, I was going to say because so I'll just introduce it and we won't actually start it. So hello everybody. I think I know everybody. I think you're the only person I haven't met. So I'm Joel Brown. I grew up in Bernathen. I've been in Australia like 3 years, and I know this guy. So I was going to talk today on A Miserable Heart, and I tried to get a fun little title. It ain't just a country song. So that's a little riff on Billy Ray Cyrus. Is that right?
Achy breaky heart. Yeah.
Achy Breaky Heart.
Oh,
Okay.
right.
That's just a fun title. But the topic is A Miserable Heart, so I'll get into that. But the little prelim part I was going to say is I approached this a little more casually. Like I was doing my research, and I was talking to Todd, I was putting it all together. And this is a little shop talk. I'll keep it short, but we got a little time. But it's funny because I gave a sermon for you guys 2 years ago, and I don't preach a lot. I went to theological school in Bernathen, and I used to do some things, but mostly I teach. But that one, it just all came together. Like, if you ever done a speech, sometimes it all just lines up, boop, 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 boop in your head. And this one, I was all like, it's like, well, So it's just an interesting process, is what I'm saying about the putting together a sermon. I don't know if you ever talked to Todd or Gary or anyone else. So I got it together here with some points, but it's here was my point about this long preliminary, since we had a second, is this is not quite a workshop, but it's not a polished Broadway sermon. So we'll shoot for somewhere in between, but I was going to try to make it a little interactive too. I thought that was fun. I'll throw out some questions and things for the. It's a long preliminary, but since we had a second, I'll just introduce that now. But are there any questions or anything people want to talk about before we
Is there going
start?
to be a test at the end?
The test, as alluded to by the
The end of
joke, is
days?
we got a crib later.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Take notes.
no test. But any other topics people want to? No.
I heard car doors
You're always
closed,
thinking something.
Yeah.
You don't have that poker face. You have that giant smile and the little blush. And it's like, all right, what are you
Okay.
up to?
Are you gonna teach at my school?
Oh, absolutely. Of course I will.
That's what I was.
My goal is to stop you from graduating on time. We'll see how. You have to pass English, right?
Yeah.
I got tricks. So.
Zach's hoping he can bribe you to do less homework.
We can hook
The
you up
answer
with
is
some
yes.
Slices,
You
yeah.
can't get the figure right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, chocolate chip or brownie? That's the question.
Oh, I think it's more about dollars than cookies.
Oh, well then I was gonna say tech help.
Joel's a math guy.
Oh,
I passed my lane type, my teacher math.
Yeah. Did you have an Axis and Allies question for him? No.
None-
Well, here's Ralph. How'd you go? All right. We shall.
Let's rise for our symbolic opening of the word. This is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. And I think we go next into a recitation. Yep. This is from the Gospel of Matthew. Oh, we didn't do our song. So we're going to seek ye first, and then we'll do a recitation. Go. Join me in our recitation today from the Gospel of Matthew. Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Please be seated.
So, good morning, everybody. We have a lovely day for our last garden service. So, the title was A Miserable Heart. We'll talk about that, and the topic is really mercy. Mercy. So, we'll get to that. But I want to start with the readings today. And our first reading from the Gospel of Mark, Zach has volunteered to read it. So, thank you, Zach.
Now they came to Jericho. As he went out of Jericho with his disciples and a great multitude, blind Bartimaeus, the son of Timaeus, sat by the road begging. And when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. Then many warned him to be quiet, but he cried out all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. So Jesus stood still and commanded him to be quiet. Then they called the blind man, saying to him, Be of good cheer. Rise, he is calling you. And throwing aside his garment, he rose and came to Jesus. So Jesus answered him and said to him, What do you want me to do for you? And the blind man said to him, Rabboni, that I may receive my sight. Then Jesus said to him, Go your way, your faith has made you well. And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus on the road.
Thank you, Zach. And our second reading is from the Psalm 136, verses 1 to 3. And Ralph has volunteered to read it for us.
Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endures forever. Oh, give thanks to the God of gods, for his mercy endures forever. Oh, give thanks to the Lord of lords, for his mercy endures forever.
Thank you, Ralph. And our third and final reading is from The Secrets of Heaven, number 587, the Eliot translation. I can read it, or is there anyone, I don't want to let people feel deprived, if anyone feels inspired to read it. Go for it.
The secrets of heaven. Jehovah's, that is, the Lord's mercy includes every single thing which the Lord does towards the human race. His condition is such that he has mercy on each according to his state. He has mercy, therefore, on the state of a person he allows to be punished. and he does on that of the person on whom he confers the enjoyment of good. Being punished is a manifestation of mercy because it turns all evil that has been punished towards good. And conferring the enjoyment of good is a manifestation of mercy too, because nobody merits anything good at all. In fact, the whole human race is evil, with everyone. If left to itself, rushing into hell. Consequently, it is by mercy that anyone is rescued from that place, and by nothing other than mercy, since the Lord does not need anyone to help him. The word mercy, misericordia, is used therefore because mercy rescues a person from misery and from hell, and so it's used with respect to the human race whose condition is such, and is the product of love towards all, because all are such.
Thank you everyone for reading. So one of the things I personally love about the writings is they're really clear, right? I've studied a lot of religion and different things, and when I read the writings, they're very clear, but it's not just the clarity, there's a warmth to it. So I don't know what over your life you've heard or read, some of the big names, John Calvin, Martin Luther. When I read some of the things they're saying, sometimes they have some truth, sometimes there's some falsities from a New Church perspective, but it often seems like it's lacking that kind of warmth. And my point here is, when Swedenborg's saying a very hard truth that we're going to talk about today, right? It's a very hard truth, but it's a really good one. But when I read it in the writings, I don't feel that horrible condemnation, oh, I'm such an awful person. I feel like he's telling us, God is telling us through Swedenborg, something really important, right? But that's just my experience as a reader of the writings. But the line that, if you remember any line from this, I think this is a great line, because nobody merits anything good at all. What do you deserve?
Nothing.
Well, okay. Are you going to get good things?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is what we're going to talk about today in this little sermonette. I'm calling it a sermonette, it's like a small sermon, because I want to ask you guys some questions and ask you to participate a little bit. All right, here we go. So I got some good news and bad news in the sermon. I'm going to start with the bad news, but then we'll get to the good news, okay? So don't worry about it. The bad news is each and every person here is going to hell. What? That's not good. It gets worse. I'm going to hell too with you. Wait, it gets worse. Every person you've ever met out there or known are also going where? To hell. Whoa, that's really negative. That's really bad. Well, not if we understand it, right? Not if we understand it from the perspective of the new church, right? So the bad news is we're going to hell. So why don't we all end up in hell? What's the answer? What's the good news? The Lord, okay? Mercy. The Lord's mercy, right? God creates us for heaven. One of the beautiful teachings in the writings is everybody is born to go to heaven. So why do people end up in hell? Quiz. Why do people end up in hell if everyone's born for heaven?
Bad choices.
Free will. You have to, it's the nature of love. You have to have that right to go, okay? God still loves them in hell, but they have the right to go. So, if we're honest with ourselves, I'll say this for me, I'll make a little testimonial. Todd gave a testimonial about his temptation, right, when he was younger. I think, this is my experience, when we're younger, I think, we're really clear sometimes. We all want to do bad things, right? You were talking when you were younger, there's a specific, we all know what that's like when we're younger, right? Sometimes we give in, we lie, we steal, whatever it is, right? As we get older, hopefully if we're regenerating, we get some control of our lives externally. Not that we're perfect, right? But here's my point. Now, I'm 53, and everybody can testify in their own way on this one. My point is, when you look deeper inside your core self, you still see that you have this tendency to throw yourself in hell. That's, to me, what the writings say. When you've been through a state of temptation, where the hells are active with you, you are like in hell, right? that is a way, temptation, the good and evil separated from you, right? But my point is, when I look back at my life at temptation states, where hells are activated in my mind, even if I'm not doing anything bad, I'm really clear about this teaching, that I personally want to throw myself in hell, right? From myself. And what stops that is God's love and God's mercy. After you come out of the temptation, right? When you get to the bottom, like Jonah in the belly of the whale, right? The big fish, and he prays and he gets cast out. The moment when you come out of temptation, spiritual temptation, you are grateful to be alive again spiritually. But again, my experience, if anyone else wants to comment, please do, you are also infinitely aware that there is a God, the God is not you, and God loves you. You see what I mean? That you're really aware. So I'll just open up the floor, because I need a drink of water too, if anyone wants to comment on that. But my point is, looking back at my life at 53, which isn't over yet, but even the temptations aren't necessarily, oh, I want to steal some paint or something. But it's like, wow, of myself, I really kind of do want to throw myself in hell. And it's God's love or mercy that saves me, not me. So I'll just open it up if anyone wants to make a comment, then I'll keep going after I drink water.
Well, that's insightful, and I feel like maybe we all want to deny that we are doing that, but no, actually, yes, that is the...
Well,
we think we're better than that, but no, we're not.
and that's one of the things I love. I mean, a story Preet will often preach is the woman caught in adultery, right? And then Jesus says, so it's from the oldest to the youngest, right? The oldest are the first to admit, yep, I am not a perfect person. Yep, anyway, that's just my experience. But did anyone else want to make, again, guys, this is like relaxed. If you want to make any comments, don't feel like you have to just be exactly on point, but creating some space if you want to make some comments before I keep moving. Okay, feel free again to chime up. So we got the big message out of the way, right? We all want to cast ourselves in hell, but because of the mercy of the Lord, we can be saved. We can be saved, right? Free will, and we need to cooperate. The writings also have a great teaching. There is no mercy apart from means. What? Say that again. There is no mercy apart from means. What does that mean? Do you want to take a crack at explaining that?
You're saying no mercy apart from me.
There is no mercy apart from means,
What
right?
does it mean?
So, hey, why doesn't God just save everybody? They're bad people. They do bad things, but shouldn't God just like beam them up to heaven and, right? But that's not the way it works. That's not the way the universe works, God's universe, right? How does it work? We have remains. Zach is sitting there full of remains, like the internal states of heaven you get in childhood. But we have to go through generation, right? That's what providence, the goal of providence is to conjoin good and truth inside us so that we can be saved. So you can't just be saved. You have to go through the process. You have to go through regeneration.
Is that
Again,
what
another
they're referring
beautiful
to as the
teaching.
means?
What's that?
Is that the means? The
Yes.
going through? Okay.
That's the means. Sometimes painful, right? And it's a neat thing that I think the church in my lifetime has focused on regeneration. Like you guys have the Journey program coming up, right? So I think that's a neat thing that you get a chance. And I absolutely think that's a great thing. I also think there's some place in the church where we should reflect on like big ideas about mercy, justice, and providence. So I think both of those things can help our spiritual lives. All right, I'm going to keep going. I got a few more points, unless anyone wants to talk. So, look around you. This is a beautiful yard. Thank you to Ralph or whoever keeps the yard, right? Beautiful yard, beautiful flowers, beautiful time of year. In the Bible, Genesis, we begin with the first 7 days of creation, right? That is our regenerative states. Then we get the Garden of Eden, right? The word Eden in the Hebrew means delight. It's literally the Garden of Delight. It is beautiful, but it's delightful, okay? God creates Adam as we know. Adam represents the most ancient church. The most ancient church were celestial. They had perception. The thing we just talked about, you kind of get after going through temptation, they got it all the time. They're like, there is a God. I get to feel God's love and put it out, but I'm not God. Well, if you know that story, and we talked about this a little last month, I think, we're talking about Eve. What does Eve represent? She represents Eve in the Garden of Eden story, Adam and Eve. Eve represents, or you can say it a bunch of different ways. Does anyone want to guess? Procreate, right? Our ego, our sense of self. So it's like, yeah, it's all from God, but I want a little credit. Me a little credit, right? Then I want a little more credit. Then actually the snake comes along and it's like, I actually want to be in charge and be God itself, right? That's the temptation. Okay, so the beautiful garden, my point is, why are we in this human condition that we need mercy? We left the Garden of Eden. As a human race, we left the Garden of Eden, right? The writings are really clear about the states and the church and what's happening. So, because we've left the Garden of Eden, that's the number I'll keep coming back to, we want to throw ourselves into hell. And we need the Lord to save us. We need the Lord's mercy to save us. All right, I'm going on to my next point. This is kind of a series of points as this talk. So, Plato, I was teaching Plato the last 5 years. Plato, the Greek philosopher, has a dialogue named Meno. And in Meno, Socrates, who's his big speaker, goes around, and Socrates likes to get people to think, so he's kind of obnoxious, but he asks a lot of questions. And in Meno, the topic is, what is virtue? So Socrates goes around, what is virtue? And somebody says, oh, honesty. And he goes, no, that's a virtue. What is virtue? And somebody else goes, oh, courage. He goes, no, that's a virtue. So what is, right, virtue itself? That's a bigger, high. So you guys, let's do a little collective thought here, briefly. What is mercy? What really is mercy to you? And you can personalize it in your own lives, or you can put it up in the sky. Either's fine. But, how do you see mercy? Say more.
Maybe unconditional love.
Unconditional love, okay? If I had a whiteboard with your teeth, I'd write that on the board, okay? You keep going if you want, but anyone else? How do you see mercy?
I kind of see it as an acknowledgement of somebody else's weakness, an understanding of their state.
Okay, so you appreciate they're not perfect or they're fallible, or that's okay?
Yeah.
Some compassion towards people, okay? Other people? What is mercy? How do you see mercy? Do you, and again, you don't have to answer this, but I'm just raising it. Do you think of yourself as a merciful person?
Yeah.
Are you merciful towards yourself and your own spiritual struggles? Are you merciful towards your partner, towards your family, towards people you meet? What does that mean to be merciful?
See, for me, when I think of mercy, I think of the movies where you've got a gladiator ready to stab someone and you say, show me mercy.
Yeah, right.
I look at that word mercy and faith, but it obviously means another.
No, but I understand what you're saying. Okay. Any other thoughts on what mercy is, or how mercy shows up in your life? Or?
Well, mercy could show up when you get pulled over for speeding and the cop doesn't give you a ticket. That would be merciful.
Okay. The question is, should the cop give you a ticket? So in New Church terms, right, we love these pairs: good, truth, evil, falsity. What do you think the pair is with mercy? Starts with a J, ends with an E, justice, right? So I was just thinking today, I won't go on forever, by the way, guys, I won't talk forever, but I was just thinking today, talking about mercy, you guys do Journey, but if I was doing another one, it'd be keep following it through as justice, right? Justice and mercy are connected. All right, so we did our little definition. If anyone wants to talk, I'm just going to give you a little linguistic knowledge, okay? So as reading, if you can look in your book, right, the Latin itself for mercy is, as Cliff read, misericordia. The miser part is like misery, suffering, right? The cordia part is heart. What's the title of our sermon? To have a miserable heart, right? Why does the word miserable heart and mercy, what's the connection there? Someone want to take a crack at that, or I can throw something out?
Feels like your heart's aching for somebody. When you have mercy, it's because your heart is aching for them.
That could be true too. How does the Bible often talk about the opposite of a merciful heart? You have a heart of stone, right? So what happens in your temptations? Your heart is kind of broken up, and hopefully you receive mercy, but then you become more merciful too. you made a good point, right? But again, these are the means. So the reason mercy in the Latin to have a miserable heart is because when our hearts, when we get that proprium out of the way, the love comes in. Okay. In the Greek, it's eleo, as in the passage we read in Mark. Here's a really good definition for you: to feel sympathy for the misery of another. Does God feel mercy for our suffering? Doesn't always seem like it, but the writings are really clear, right? God actually does care about our suffering. We don't always see that, but that's abundantly true. The Hebrew, there's a couple words that get translated. One is kesed, as in what Ralph read, right? The mercy of the Lord is forever. Another one, though, is rakam. It's a word meaning compassion or mercy, and it's connected to the word womb. So, Jen, why do you think the word in Hebrew for mercy is connected to the word like a woman's womb?
Right. Well, that's where something grows. It's a safe harbor. What does that have to do with mercy? That's a good question. I mean, the thing that comes to mind is about generation, growing something, and regeneration, growing that new heart kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you're the expert. Jen's the doula. Okay, I know other women have had babies, but it's like that thing needs to be so preciously nurtured and cared for, just like a newborn baby, right? That, I mean, I would assume mothers just have this incredible, what do the writers call it, storge, this incredible compassion or tenderness towards children, right? So that's just like an analogy of how the Lord can have that towards us too. Okay, I have one more point to finish up, and then if there's any other conversation, but just one more point. So I'm going to go through the Mark passage myself and talk about it just briefly, and then we'll finish up, okay? So now they came down to Jericho. So I don't know if you guys know your geography in the Holy Land. Jericho's down in the valley, right? You got the Jordan River, the Dead Sea, it's down. And the Jordan River represents the edge of the church, which you can think of it kind of as the boundary of your spiritual mind, too. And in this case, Jericho is a place of instruction, learning the knowledges of the church, right? So Jesus and his disciples come out of Jericho, and there's lots of people around. Why? Because Jesus is a rock star. At this point in his public ministry, he's a rock star. Now, they don't see him for who he really is, God. They see him for somebody who will make the Jews a great kingdom again, defeat their enemies, the Romans, right? But he's a rock star. And there's a blind man, and he's sitting there by the road begging. When he heard Jesus, he cries out, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Okay? And the crowd basically, leave alone. But he cries out a second time, right? So this is, hey, can I borrow the car, Mom? No. Can I please, let me borrow, right? He really wants to see. And he represents the Gentiles, so Gentiles are people who don't have the word, basically, right? And if you've ever been in a Gentile state yourself, we all go through, in my opinion, we all go through them. Sometimes you're just craving light and truth and guidance. Could be about a relationship, could be about a career, could be about a spiritual issue. But if you get desperate and you beg God, you're opening up your heart, in a sense, saying, I can't do this. You need to do this for me, right? And God does. God gives him the sight. And so the one final point I was going to make about that, I was thinking that, and I mentioned this to Todd, it's a beautiful thing when people come into the church. Again, getting older, I'm trying to say older, like, hey, I'm 53. But when you see somebody who's had their own life and, and then they find the church, sometimes they're just amazed by the truth and the light. I grew up in Bernathen from the time I was knee-high to a grasshopper. There are the books. Oh, yeah, we got all the answers, right? But it's amazing to see, like, a Gentile who didn't have sight and has sight. And I just think that's a good lesson for all of us. In the church, it's really easy to fall into I call it the chosen people syndrome. We think we're special because we have a lot of knowledge, right? And we should be humble and wise and beg for mercy. So, anyway, I'll just briefly open it up if anyone wants to say anything, or we could at the end. Otherwise, I think that was my message.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's mercy is I guess not something that I think about a lot in my day-to-day life, and yet it's one of those things that perhaps needs to be more integrated into how we deal with other people. You know, when we talk about forgiveness, I think more than mercy,
Yeah.
and that it's weird because like when I think of being merciful towards somebody else, I often feel like there's an implication that I'm better than them in the first place. Oh, I need to be merciful to my wife because, well, she doesn't understand how this goes. I have pity on you, right? And so it's a weird place to come from because I don't want to be that, right? You don't want to be looking down on someone. And yet, from the Lord's point of view, you can say, yeah, well, sure, he is looking down on us
But that's
legitimately.
Because we know that's the difference between pity and real mercy. Pity is kind of like, oh, they're not as good as me, or they're not as real mercy and compassion is just feel caring like human to human. And none of us are perfect, but that's what comes to my mind. Also, Elvis Presley used to have a line when he said when someone would say something harsh about somebody, hey, you've never walked a mile in that person's shoes, right? But the humility there is, you know, their suffering, their experience. Take that into account.
Yeah. Well, and it's useful to pair that with the idea, like you opened with, that, you know, we all have this desire for hell, and we may have a different hell that we each hunger for, and therefore that's why we have to be merciful as they approach theirs, because we're approaching ours
Yeah.
too, kind of thing.
No, everyone, yeah, we might not be tempted for the same thing. Oh, it's easy for me not to steal because that's not my thing, but we all have our thing, right? We know that. When you reflect, we all have our things, right? We're all the human race. So. I think that closes it, unless anyone has comments.
No, thank you very much. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed not having to prep it.
So, well, with that in mind, let's close with a Lord's Prayer, and then we'll close the word and have a final hymn. So, kneel, bow as you choose. Lord, thank you for this message today. We know it's in your providence that we needed to hear this. So thanks for inspiring Joel and letting his inspiration come to us. That we should be embracing mercy for ourselves and for other people. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. May the grace of our Lord God, Jesus Christ, be with us all. Amen. And we'll finish with the Open Your Eyes hymn. complaints about the service, give them to me, not to Joel. Yeah, but yeah, have mercy on him. But no, I've enjoyed our garden services. It's been nice together. The weather has cooperated with us for all three of them. Yeah, next week we start our Rise Above It journey program. I have 6 books on the table there. If anybody wants to grab them, so there's not many.
6 people.
So yeah, don't. If we run out, let me know. But I guess I'm saying don't grab a book for somebody who's not here. Is what I'm saying. So if you want one, go for it. There are newsletters and calendars back there as well. And then yeah, next Sunday we start up with the program. And yeah. Anything else that I need to mention? Any other last thoughts on mercy? Yeah. It's a big topic, for sure. And one of the things that Joel was saying to me throughout the week as we were discussing this was the meaning of Hosanna. Have mercy on us, is that right?
Yeah, Hosanna is the Greek, like the New Testament, but comes from the Hebrew, Hoshiani, and they're literally shouting to Jesus, save me, when he's coming into Jerusalem.
Yeah, and it would be good, I think, if we all had more of that attitude towards life. Save me, and having some sort of a sense about where we go wrong. Save me, have mercy on me, and just being cognizant of that link between the Lord's mercy and that we have to actually do something with it. So the Hosanna will stick with me for a while, I think. So.
There's the crowd wanting to be saved from the Romans. What was that supposed to be?
Yeah.
But the actual people, just because they wanted to be saved from the Romans.
Sure. I mean, there's no doubt that the crowd wanted to be saved from the Romans. Absolutely. And yet, there are people like the Nicodemus who's got a more personal application to the saving that they're seeking. And I think that's what we're supposed to be seeking. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I was thinking
Oh, the correspondence of the crowd?
yeah.
Well, I mean, the Romans are going to represent our natural life, so there's often have to be cry to the Lord to save our circumstance. I'm sick, right? Save me from this. Or, my boss was a jerk. Save me from my employer. So that's kind of more of a Roman setup versus Nicodemus is the sight, help me in here, right? Help me see clearly. All right. Well, thanks again, and enjoy this lovely day.
And you will.
I certainly will, yes.
Get out.
I gotta figure out how to stop this thing. Okay.
Yeah, people be careful of taking the seats away. Just don't